his eye. I'm willing to take the risk. Will he still remember me? Will he still love me even when he's free? Or will he go back to the place where he choose the poison lonely? When we spoke yesterday, he said to hold my breath and sit and wait. I'll be home so soon I won't be late.
Well, we're live. Hello, everybody. Hi, Ieuan. Lovely to see you again.
Good afternoon.
And yes, welcome to that album. That fun show and fun way to round out a week. And this week we are doing 21 by Adele. And this was your idea, but interestingly, it's not an album that you'd listen to, is it?
Nope, it's not. I have described myself as a music snob. And I was never going to listen to it back in 2011 because it was a successful album and it was in the charts and it was pop music. And I watched a documentary on Netflix about Adele and thought, that's one very, very impressive lady. I owe her. I need to go listen to that album to find out whether me being a snob is the right or wrong thing to do, which is why I suggested it.
Yeah, well, interestingly, and hi everybody, hi Andrew and Graham and Ian. Interestingly, I was in exactly the same space, so clearly it can't be any good because everybody likes it. Although, you know, one of the things that has really doing this show has really driven home to me is that best-selling albums are normally best-selling albums for a reason, and you know, loads of stuff that I hadn't listened to, I have listened to as a result of this, and I've gone, I see now why this is the third best-selling album of all time, because actually it's really good. That's why loads of people have bought it. So I came like you with an expectation that with no expectation actually, because loads of people have said this is great. I was averse to this. You are definitely a music star. Yeah. And proud of it. Hi, John. Yeah. So I came to this album with a completely clean sheet. Well, first of all, as your first listen through, what did you think of this?
My first listen through, I knew the singles, Rolling in the Deep, Rumour Has It, Set Fire to the Rain, Someone Like You. I knew them. I'd heard them. They'd been all over the radio, so I was familiar with them. And I got, obviously the album starts quite strong, and then it sort of tails off, and I lost a bit of interest. And I thought, that's okay. That's just me not having the right attention span for it. So I listened to it twice every day. By Tuesday afternoon, I was starting to question my choice of album. By Wednesday afternoon, I was back on Leonard Cohen to cheer myself up. I really haven't enjoyed this.
To cheer myself up. Yeah. Well, it's really funny that you should say that, because I had completely the other experience of this. I put it on thinking, you know, I'm not really looking forward to this, but Ieuan, you know, he's chosen this for a reason. And I thought, actually, this is really good. I mean, she's got just the most phenomenal voice.
Oh, I would take nothing. She is amazing. She has very good songwriting skills. She has very good production skills because she produced most of the tracks as well. And she has an amazing voice and personality to go with it. I'm just not sure, for me anyway, that this collection of songs works as an album. And I'm someone that I don't listen to mix lists or I don't hit shuffle on my Spotify. I listen to an album from track 1 to track 10, whatever it might be, in the order that the artist or the producer has decided they're going to be produced. As you will know, because you follow me on Instagram and you see what I listen to most evenings, and I generally start track 1 and then to end on the end track. So I'm used to listening to albums, and for me, this just didn't work as an album.
I would agree with that. I don't think it's a great album. I think she's great and she carries this. But I've, over the months that we've been doing this show, I think we've seen that a number of times where, a great collection of tracks does not a great album make. Lenny Kravitz's Mama said, great example of that, fantastic tracks, absolutely fantastic tracks. But as an album, right. And I guess this is kind of in a similar vein. I mean, a bit interesting reading back about her. So she went to the Brit School along with, so in her class, Leona Lewis and Jessie J. That's a pretty good class to be in, isn't it? Let's be honest.
So there's a bit of a backstory here. So this is one of the reasons why I may have chosen this album as well, because my son went to the Brit School.
Right.
Adele had left by the time he started. He didn't.
That's unfortunate because I think she's looking for a new boyfriend, isn't she?
My son is quite happily married. But that's fine. But yeah, she probably is, which means we've got another album coming, I suspect. But yeah, my son went to the Brit School. So obviously anyone that went to the Brit School automatically piques my interest because I'm just interested in the school and the background that goes with it.
Yeah, so interesting. So already we have a divergence of opinion. So you were Marlish. I thought it was great songs, great, and Carolyn, it's a great album, and quite interesting how we draw kind of different things. I mean, what you can't argue though is the success of this album. I mean, this is just utterly staggering, isn't it? Yeah, so this was the best-selling album of both 2011 and 2012 in the US, with sales of 5.8 and 4.4 million, respectively. It was the first time that a long player had topped the sales chart for 2 years in a row since Nielsen's SoundScan began tracking the US album sales in 1991. It is the 16th best-selling album of all time. It is also the second best-selling album of the 20. Sorry, it's the in the UK. It's the best-selling album of the 21st century and the second best-selling album of all time, after Queen's Greatest Hits. The success of this album made the previous album, 19, re-enter the charts at number 4, and it's the first living act to do so since the Beatles to have 2 top 5 albums simultaneously. Absolutely outstanding. Set Fire to the Rain became Adele's third number 1 single from on the Billboard Hot 100, as Adele became the first ever artist to have an album hold the number 1 position on the Billboard 200 concurrently with 3 number 1 singles. Moreover, 21 had the most weeks in the Billboard 200 chart of any album by a female artist. I mean, it's just unbelievable. You couldn't make this up, could you?
No, you couldn't. And and it won Grammys and Brit Awards and Rolling Stone Awards and Billboard Music Awards. If it had an award attached to it, it walked away with it. It is supreme. And I have a copy of it. I didn't purchase it. It was my wife's copy. I didn't know I owned it until I went looking in my CD cupboard and found it. I found some other stuff as well. It's quite interesting. And I was working away in 2011 when this album came out. I was working away Monday to Friday. So I'm not surprised that I didn't know she'd bought it, because it's not in my iTunes library. And most CDs at that time, they got purchased, got installed in my iTunes library, and got dumped onto my iPod and got played in the car and stuff. But this one never did. So I was quite surprised to find that I owned it.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously that's helped contribute to
yeah. But again, my wife bought it because my son was in the school and she's an expert school alumni. So.
Absolutely. So, have you got anything else on the album before we start listening?
Only that, and I joked just now about, obviously it's her breakup album. It's written from a place of pain, and if you read any of the reviews about the album, they talk about it helping to get people through breakups and then that type of stuff. And maybe if I didn't know that when I started listening to it, I may have approached the album with a bit more of a cheery, optimistic view of it. I don't know. I mean, it's psychology stuff. I'm never going to be able to work this out. But
Yeah,
I get why it works for some people. Absolutely.
yeah. So apparently she was inebriated while writing the majority of this album, drinking 2 bottles of wine and chain smoking on a regular basis.
Well, to be honest with you, had I been drinking, I might have been drinking as I was listening to it. I don't drink. I didn't.
Yeah. So what she said is a drunk tongue is an honest one. She said that to Vanity Fair. I can see from an outsider's perspective that I will never write songs as good as the ones that are on 21, but I'm not as indulgent as I was then, and I don't have time to fall apart like I did then.
I think there's an interview in Rolling Stone magazine where she talks about someone like you being, for her, almost the perfect song.
Oh, I thought you could say someone like me being, for her, the perfect
part. Yeah. She describes her songwriting style and the emotion that goes into it and the production. It's obviously made her a lot of money. I'd be a big fan of it. It made me a lot of money as well. But she does talk quite fondly about the writing process, the production process, and actually the song.
Yeah. So first song, "Rolling in the Deep," and it's a good way to start an album, isn't it? It's a good song. This.
It is. I quite like this one.
She calls this a revenge song. Adele lays into a former boyfriend. It's making a bit of a statement. She tells Q magazine. People will hear it and go, "Wow, she ain't mucking around." And actually, you do get that impression of her, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not a girl to be trifled with.
Yeah, she did an article in Rolling Stone, and it says "Rolling in the Deep" is a sort of adaptation of a slang phrase used in the UK called "roll deep." I'm thinking, I'm not sure I'd know that.
No, but it's for young people, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, there is a gap between our ages, but between ours and Adele's ages, but it's only 15, 20 years. It's not a couple of days, But yeah, quite right. There is I think it's been described as a fiery anthem of empowerment and defiance, and it definitely is that.
Yeah, so apparently in my notes here, while she was touring North America in support of her previous album, 19, Adele was introduced by her bus driver to a Wanda Jackson Greatest Hits album. She travelled around the southern states and she found herself drawn to American country music, including Alison Krauss, Rascal Flatts, and Lady Antebellum.
Antebellum. Yeah.
Sorry?
Antebellum.
Yeah, whatever. Clearly not one that I'm familiar with. Once she began prepping her sophomore release back to England, Adele began incorporating those new influences into her songs. And you can hear it in this, can't you?
You absolutely can.
Big Americana feel to it.
Yeah, she heavily influenced by country music and a bit of time she spent in Nashville. So in terms of production quality, I listened to this on headphones at one point. And there's a lovely muted strings or dampened strings in the left-hand speaker, her vocal in the right, and then the drums enter on the right and the vocal centralizes. And then about a minute in, her voice moves around the speakers and stuff. And it's a lovely production. But you're quite right, in terms of the Americana, the stompy thing, and I think it's about 2.5 minutes in, there's this stompy section. You can almost picture yourself in a barn.
Yeah, doing your barn dance. You're showing your age now.
Yeah.
So here we go. Rolling in the Deep, track 1.
There's a fire starting in my heart, reaching a fever pitch that's bringing me out the dark. Finally, I can see you crystal clear. Go ahead and sell me out and I'll lay your ship bare. See, I'll leave with every piece of you. Don't underestimate the things that I will do. There's a fire starting in my heart, reaching a fever pitch and it's bringing me out the dark. The scars of your love remind me of us. They keep me thinking that we almost had it all. The scars of your love, they leave me breathless. I can't help feeling we could have had it all.
I mean, that voice is just unbelievable, isn't it? Absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, as much as I didn't enjoy the album, that would take nothing away from her vocal abilities. And actually, I don't think that's her strongest vocal performance on the album. I think there are stronger tracks. But that single has sold, they reckon, 20 million copies.
So moderately successful, more successful than either your best or my best-selling single.
Oh yeah, by a long way, by a long way. Yeah, and I don't know how many singles you've sold, but I know how many I've sold.
Yeah, I think we're tied pretty much, mate. I think we're tied pretty much. Yeah, absolutely, Ellen. So track 2, Rumor Has It. So she wrote this with Ryan Tedder, who also writes for Leona Lewis and Beyonce, apparently. Not a guy I'm familiar with. You see, this is all like 30 years too recent for me, really, to be properly into it.
Interestingly, most of the writers are her age. One of them isn't. The one guy from Semisonic, I think he's more our generation, but the others, you're quite right, they're all very young and have gone on to work with Beyonce and Kanye and other artists that I don't know music from.
I wouldn't say Kanye is an artist personally, but that's a conversation for another day. So apparently Ryan Tedder told US Breakfast Show today that the song was in US Breakfast Show today that the song was inspired by Adele's frustration at false speculation about her love life. This next song, he recalled how an angry Adele stormed into one of the recording sessions, explaining, "People in London, my friends, are saying, rumor has it that Adele's gone off and done this with this guy," and he said, "Well, that's what the next song's going to be called, isn't it?" And yeah, so what do we think of this one?
Again, I don't mind. Again, I think because it's one of those ubiquitous tracks, it was everywhere. It is everywhere. It still gets played today. I think I've become acclimatized to it. But actually, no, I do quite like it. I particularly like at about 30, 40 seconds in is silence, and it goes again. To have silence that early in the record is quite unusual. Normally get it towards the end, so it lulls the audience into a false sense of security.
Yeah.
And then there's a complete change of pace at 2:20, almost as if they split the song into sections, and it's, well, these are the whispers, these are the rumors, and then it's and just it's really, really cleverly done.
Yeah. So here we go. Rumor has it.
She ain't real. She ain't gonna be able to love you like I will. She is a stranger. You and I have history, but don't you remember? Sure, she's got it all. But baby, is that really what you want? Let's go, so you got your head in the clouds. You made a fool out of you, but she's bringing you down. She made your heart melt, but you're colder than core. Now rumor has it she ain't got your love anymore. Rumor has it. 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 She is half your age, but I'm guessing that's the reason that you stay.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with Carolyn's comment. I don't think it's one of the better songs on the album, certainly.
No, like I said, I think the fact it's been everywhere, we've just become acclimatized to it.
Yeah,
but it was okay. At this point, I wasn't bored of the album. I was still quite engaged. You'll be able to tell when I get less engaged in it because my notes get shorter and shorter.
Yes, yes, and this is track 7.
Oh,
and that's it.
When we get to that, I've got some really interesting comments.
So onto the next track, Turning Tables. She wrote this again with Ryan Tedder. She told The Sun how she hooked up with the American songwriter. I met him very briefly the first time in an elevator in LA, and I had balloons. He heard me laugh, so he started popping the balloons to see who was behind them. Quite romantic, really, isn't it? then walked into the studio and he was there because he was supporting James Morrison. I just had a big argument with my ex-boyfriend again. There's a repeating pattern here, isn't there? I'd only met him in the elevator briefly before, and I was like, "Who does he think he is?" Always turning the tables on me. Hence the title, "Turning Tables."
How annoyed would you be though if you went in a lift with some balloons and someone started popping them to see who you were?
Yeah, that's a good
You
way.
take him to a child's birthday party or anything.
Yeah. So this was performed by Gwyneth Paltrow on the 2011 episode of Glee.
Yes.
Just as a side point, which may be of interest to somebody.
Well, I'm aware of the program Glee because my son used to watch it because obviously he was that age, and actually he got introduced to quite a lot of music, a lot of proper music, because of Glee, because they were covering it, and then he went on to ask about the original versions.
Yeah. So when she was after she had written this, she thought that they should give this to Leona Lewis to sing, which is interesting.
So I've split my notes down to bits and pieces. I've got their things and I've got my thoughts because I found I wasn't concentrating on the album, so I had to force myself to sit down and listen to each track individually and write some notes on it. And I've got on this track that it starts with a very simple repeating piano motif that repeats all the way through the song, but it repeats it at different intensities with different layers and that sort of stuff. There's some strings that come in at 2:30, which I think are quite nice, but it's quite a simple song, and it does allow her voice to be the dominant instrument on display.
Yeah, I mean, and that begs the question: does she play the piano? Because there's a famous photograph of her when she was starting out playing the guitar.
Yeah, she did her first Jules Holland performance. She sat on stage with an acoustic guitar. You're quite right.
Yeah, so
I think she does play piano. Yes.
Yeah.
Whether she played it on this track or not, I don't know.
No, she's not credited as being one of the musicians, only as the singer. But actually, maybe she's good enough to use it as a writing tool. So here we go, Turning Tables.
Close enough to start a war. All that I have is on the floor. God only knows what we're fighting for. All that I say, you always say more. I can't keep up with your turning tables under your thumb. I can't breathe. So I won't let you close enough to hurt me. No, I won't ask you to just desert me. I can give you all you think you gave me. It's time to say goodbye to turning tables.
So shall I whiz it forward to 2:30 so we can hear your strings come in, or just before that?
It's time to say goodbye to turning tables. Turning tables. Next time I'll be braver, I'll be my own savior when the thunder calls for me. Next time.
Yeah, I mean, it is very well orchestrated, isn't it?
I would say the production quality is superb.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I end up saying this every week. You know, I've spent all week listening to this album, and I'm listening to it and hearing things for the first time in the show, and the ability that she has to sing, you know, so beautifully in tune, fantastic power, great enunciation when she chooses to, just beautiful highs and lows and great dynamic range as well as vocal range. I mean, one of the greatest voices of this generation, no doubt.
Yeah, I'd go along with that. I don't think there are many that could compete with her toe to toe.
Yeah. So next track, Don't You Remember? Apparently, she found this the most challenging track to record on this album. It was sort of my attempt at a country song. It starts super duper tender and soft, which I'm not really into that, she admitted in an interview she did for Vogue. By the end, I'm wailing, which is much more my comfort zone. Actually, I've seen her interviewed a few times, and I've seen her doing cameos in comedy things a couple of times as well.
Did you see the video of her doing an impression of her doing her?
No.
There's a very famous video, I think it's part of the Graham Norton show, where they get 3 or 4 other Adele tribute artists, and they're all doing their piece on stage, and Adele is the last one to do her piece to camera as a tribute artist. And she comes across all nervous. And then the minute she starts singing, the others start twigging that it's the real Adele. She's got prosthetics on and that sort of stuff to make herself look she still looks like Adele, but they all do because that's their job.
Yeah.
But that's worth digging out because it is quite amusing.
Yeah. I mean, she is. She doesn't take herself too seriously, and you've got to like that, haven't you?
She always reminds me of this is going to sound really weird, and there may be 1 or 2 people that get the reference. Anyone that's abroad isn't going to get the reference, and I apologise. And that is, Nan.
Yeah.
The comedian is
Catherine Tate.
Catherine Tate's Nan. She's like a young version of Catherine Tate's Nan.
That's exactly what she's like. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, what a load of old crap. It's fantastic. But yeah, I mean, she's perfectly happy to send herself up. She's perfectly happy to have a bit of a laugh at her own expense.
Yeah.
And I love that because, despite the fact she is one of the most sought after artists in the world now, one of the best selling artists of all time, recognized in every country around the world. She has everything going for her. She could become like some of these horror stories you hear of other people that become prima donnas, and she's not like that at all.
Yeah, I don't think she'd ever become a diva.
No. Yes, indeed. Am I bothered? So Don't You Remember?
So I wrote down, I thought the last track was quite dull and boring, and then this one came on. And this one is even more boring. It's vocally superb, and she's absolutely right. It does start tender and goes bing. But it felt very much like the song had been written to a formula.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that one of the things that's really interesting as we go through these albums is how few truly great songwriters there are. So, there are the Joni Mitchells of this world, and the Lindsey Buckinghams and Stevie Nicks and Christine McVie. There's the kind of the Joni Mitchells, the James Taylors, where every song tells a story and there's a stream of consciousness, and here, she's been well schooled in how to write songs because clearly that was part of what she was learning at the Brit School.
Yeah,
and they do seem a little bit cookie cuttery from time to time, don't they?
Yeah, this one definitely does for me.
Down on the farm when it is very country and western, isn't it?
When will I see you again? You left with no goodbye, not a single word was said. No final kiss to seal any sins. I had no idea of the state we were in. know I have a fickle heart and a bitterness and a wandering eye and a heaviness in my head. But don't you remember? Don't you remember?
See, I really like this one. This is one of the high points for me. And I know what you mean. But it's not a douche. You know, you said, and I quote, by Wednesday I have to start listening to Leonard Cohen to cheer myself up.
Yeah.
You know, let's be honest. These are all jolly ditties compared to your mate Len, aren't they?
Possibly. I mean, it is very subjective, and I'm happy to accept that it's very subjective. I'm also not a big fan of country and western. I do lots of genres, but country isn't one of the genres I drop into, and that might have tainted my view on this track.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think this is quite well by country and western standards. This is quite jolly, isn't it? But
yeah, no one's dog has died. You're quite
right. Yeah. So that brings us on to Set Fire to the Rain. So this is obviously one of the big hits from the album, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you sold 13 million copies, but you know, by our standards, that's a big hit.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was the third chart topper on the Hot 100. This song's ascent to number one coincided with 21's 17th week at the top of the album charts. As Rolling in the Deep and Someone Like You also reigned simultaneously with one of the other sets periods at the Summit 21. 21 became the first LP by a single artist to have led the Billboard 200 concurrently with 3 Hot 100 number ones. The feat was only previously achieved by the multi-artist Saturday Night Fever soundtrack in 1978.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So when this went to number one, Adele became the first British artist to have 3 chart toppers from one album in the top 100 since George Michael in the 80s. This won Best Solo Performance for a live version of this she did at the 2013 Grammys.
You won Best Video as well, didn't it, or something from memory?
I don't know. A year after, she won 6 of 6 possible awards. And she said of that, honestly, I just wanted to come and be part of the night because I loved it last year.
Yeah, she won a Grammy for it, for Best Solo Performance.
Yeah. Yeah, so this... yeah.
So I think this is probably my favourite track off the album. And okay. I think the reason I think I like it is, apart from her pronunciation of the word, where's the line? Fire. If I didn't know that it was Set Fire to the Rain, I wouldn't know what that fire word was. But what I really do like is there's a bit of vocal fry that's applied to her. The line is, watched it pour as I touched your face. In that line, there's a bit of distortion on the voice. And for me, it makes it more authentic. With this one, I'm getting less of a, it's been written because I need to write a song for the album. I get the authenticity of this one, which I think maybe why I like it.
I let it fall, my heart, and as it fell, you rose to claim it. It was dark, and I was over, until you kissed my lips and you saved me. My hands, they were strong, but my knees were far too weak. Stand in your arms without falling to your feet. But there's a side to you that I never knew. All the things you say, they were never true, and the games you play, you
Right, so this song particularly, I've got it now, what it reminds me of. And in the same way that Oasis recycled the Beatles' music, she recycles Gary Barlow's music. That's what it is. It very, very similar in terms of how he constructs his songs.
Okay.
Where it's like a long, gentle intro before the big, expansive, chorusy bit. Very, very similar, particularly on this, I think.
This track, you're quite right. The contrast between the verse and the chorus is clear. On some of the other songs, that contrast is somewhat
less obvious, yeah. So on to He Won't Go. So she wrote this with producer Paul Epworth, who, amongst other things, worked with the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Johnny Cash. With quite a good claim to fame, isn't it? Well, and Block Party and Florence and the Machine, but Red Hot Chili Peppers. And she said that she found this very daunting because Californication was one of the albums that defined her youth, and she used to listen to a lot. So she was very scared when she went into the studio with this guy.
Yeah, this song intrigued me because it's almost in 30-second chunks, almost to the second. You could put a stopwatch on it for the first couple of sections and it sits in 30-second chunks. It builds quite nicely. The first 30 seconds, I sat there thinking, this is the Depeche Mode song. I had to go back to the notes to check that it wasn't, because it sounds very much like that type of style. But it builds nicely. Like the 30-second thing is interesting. Every 30 seconds, another layer gets added. It moves away from that model towards the end, but only about 40 seconds. It's quite interesting.
Okay, so here we go. I shall listen out for that. He Won't Go. And that's 30 seconds.
I'll be better without you. They don't know you like I do. Or at least the size of thought I knew. I can't bear this time. It drags on as I lose my mind, reminded by things I find, like notes and clothes you left behind. Wake me up when all is done. I won't rise until this battle's won. My dignity's become undone, but I won't go. I can't do it on my own. If this ain't nothing but ease, I'm willing to take the risk.
There's a little bit of updated Jackson 5 going on in there as well, I think, which I kind of quite like in many ways.
I can't comment because I'm not overly familiar with the Jackson 5 work, if I'm being honest. Obviously, I know that the ones that were in the charts and stuff, but maybe this show is unraveling the stuff that I don't know rather than the stuff that I do know.
Well, I find the same. You know, the last 3 months have been full of people saying, "Oh, I'd like to do this album," and I'm like, "I've never listened to that before, so that'll be fun." So, yeah, I mean, welcome to my world, mate. Which brings us on to Take It All, or perhaps Take That would be a better name for this one. What have you had on this?
So this, I mean, obviously this song is about feelings of regret and longing, and that the love and the relationship has ended. And it's her saying,
I didn't know that had gone on when she was.
Yeah. Once or twice through this album, it's something she draws on every now and again. But it's her expressing her willingness to take the blame, and then her desire to find a new lover. My notes on this are: this is a dark bar, smoke in the air, guy at the piano, Adele with a fag in hand, a scotch in the other, sat by the side of the piano, downloading her sorrows onto the guy playing the piano. And that you can kind of hear that when she starts singing. But then there's some backing singers, and I think it's the first time on this album that we've got third-party backing singers and not Adele as a backing singer. and they kind of stand out and feel a little bit out of place because it kind of breaks this smoky bar type imagery that it gives you. But
So,
it's a pleasant enough song.
When she introduces this track during her performance live at the Albert Hall, she reveals regarding the ex that inspired most of this album. He left me a couple of weeks after I played him this song. It was for the best, though. He was an arse and I was a bitch. It wasn't going to work. So at least
I like that sort of honesty and that level of self-awareness. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we go. Smoky bar time.
Didn't I give it up? Gave you everything I had, everything and no less. Didn't I do it right? Did I let you down? Maybe you got too used to having me around. Still, how can you walk away from all my tears? It's gonna be an empty road without me right here. But go on and take it all with you. Don't look back at this crumbling fool. Just take it all with my love.
Yeah, really good. I
Beautiful blues tone to her voice.
Yeah, and that has maybe it's the piano and the way that the voice and the piano are kind of dancing around one another. It has definite shades of Billy Joel in it. That, which is a good thing. You know, I'm a big Billy Joel fan. I think he's tremendous. So I'll be waiting.
Yep. So I've got down that obviously this is a song of patience and hope, and it's her expressing a dedication to waiting for that new love that might one day return, despite the current tumultuous emotions that she's going through.
Yeah, despite the fact that he was an arse and she was a bitch. Yeah,
absolutely, exactly that. But maybe she can find a new ass moving forward. There's an interesting honky tonk type vibe at the start of this. It's a lazy honky tonk, but it's a bit of a lazy, which I quite like. And about a minute and a half, the backing vocals kick in and give the song a lift, which isn't a bad thing. It's got a very American sound to it. This is definitely written in Nashville, recorded in Nashville type thing.
Yeah, so she said she told The Sun when she was interviewed on one occasion, this is quite a happy song, actually. It's me admitting my faults. So here we go. Honky tonk Americana, here we come.
One more time, say that you love me in your last goodbye. Please forgive me for my sins. Yes, I swear dirty waters that you pushed me in. I've seen your face under every sky, over every border, and on every line. You know my heart more than I do. We were the greatest, me and you. But we had time against us and miles between us. The heavens cried. I know I left you speechless, but now the sky is clear and it's blue. And I see my future in you. I'll be waiting for you when you're ready to love me again. I'm with my hands up. I do everything different. I'll be better to you. I'll be waiting.
It's really interesting actually, because all of her songs, and you notice it when you're kind of watching the clock when you're playing them for the show. All of the songs have got a very long intro-y verse bit before we get to the kind of upbeat chorus, which is really unusual for a successful album or song, isn't it?
Yes.
Because people have got a really short attention span. So normally you have to give the kind of the meat of the song up front. Otherwise they've tuned into something else by that time. So interesting that she got such amazing traction with this album.
Yeah. Well, yes and no. If you look at the other stuff, I mean, as I referred to my iTunes, like I went back to see what I was listening to in 2011 to try and work out why I'd missed this album and other stuff. And I bought very few albums that released in 2011. I thought, well, that's unusual because I buy a lot of music. And then I looked at the top 50 albums and went, yeah, okay, I'm not surprised. So I get why this album did so well, because the rest of the stuff that was around is absolute tripe.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, proper rubbish. Susan Ball was in the charts for crying out loud.
Okay. Enough said. So here we are, a little bit further through the track.
Very vocal style, very Home of Faith-esque.
Yeah. Who did you say that was?
Well, Paloma Faith-esque. It's kind of got
I thought that was quite Amy Winehouse, that bit.
Oh, that's entirely possible. Of course, 2011 is the year that Amy Winehouse died. They were in school at roughly the same time with each other. So there may have been a degree of influence on each other.
Excellent. Good choice, Andrew. I shall look forward to doing that one with you. Which brings us on to One and Only. And anyone that grew up when we grew up, obviously this means Chesney Hawkes, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. But this isn't the same song, unfortunately.
It isn't, no. Which is, well, you say unfortunately, you don't really mean it.
No, I do. Because it was at this point of the album that I'm now getting quite bored and fatigued. And genuinely, my notes for this one just say, yeah, it's a nice Hammond organ sound, and that's all I have to say about that. And I've kind of left it. I'm thinking, now, I have to say, your normal piece about, listen to it as part of the show, I'm picking up different bits and pieces. And I've enjoyed the songs better in 30-second clips rather than listening to an hour's worth of the album. But I still probably won't ever be playing the album again in its entirety, if I'm being honest.
Okay, so you are the one and only. Here we go.
You've been on my mind. I grow fonder every day, losing myself in time. Just thinking of your face, God only knows why it's taken me so long to let my doubts go. You're the only one that I want. I don't know why I'm scared. I've been here before. Every feeling, every word, I've imagined it all. You never know if you never try to forgive your past and simply be mine. I dare you to let me be the one and only. Promise I'm worth to hold in your arms. So come on and give me the chance.
So you're getting terribly fatigued.
Yeah, I was listening to it thinking, I know there's a Hammond organ, and then it kicked in. I wasn't imagining that. There's a Hammond organ.
Which brings us on to Love Song. So it's the only cover on the album.
It's the only one that's not written by her. You're quite right.
Yeah, so this was written by
Robert Smith of The Cure.
It was.
Which means I should absolutely adore it.
But
but I didn't.
The best thing about Robert Smith from The Cure is that wonderful thing when he's being interviewed, and he must have seen it outside the Hall of Fame, and the interviewer says, "Oh, okay, this is so amazing! This is so amazing that you've been indicted into the Hall of Fame. Are you as excited about this as I am?" And holds the microphone to him, and he says, "It would appear not." Yeah, so this replaced "Never Tear Us Apart," the In Excess song, which was going to be the cover on here, and it almost didn't make the final cut, as it was not included in the original track listing. Ultimately, 4 other songs were cut from the album: "Love Song," "Set Fire to Rain," "He Won't Go," and "I'll Be Waiting." And "Love Song," "Set Fire to Rain," "He Won't Go," and "I'll Be Waiting" were all added instead.
I would love to hear that version of "Love Will Tear Us Apart," because that's driven by a bass guitar. One of the few things that doesn't appear on this album.
Yes, yeah, very good point. So here we go. A bit of Robert Smith's work, which you should absolutely love, but don't.
Which you should have done, yes.
Whenever I'm alone with you.
Sounds like a Bond thing.
It does, which obviously she did do as well.
Bond thing. Yeah.
Feel like I am home again. Whenever I'm alone with you, you make me feel like I am whole again. Whenever I'm alone.
It's just more of the same, isn't it? Her voice is the dominant thing here, and rightly so. You've got Adele fatigue going on, haven't you?
It left me cold. Had you given me all the notes for this album, this is the one track I would have gone to listen to first, because it's a song that I know, it's a band that I quite like.
Yeah.
And it left me cold, which is sad.
It is sad. Which brings us on to the last track, about which there is, finding notes on this track. The challenge has been editing them down to something that doesn't take an hour to talk about.
17 million copies sold.
17 million. She premiered this song in 2010 on Later with Jules Holland. It took off from there, reaching an audience that welcomed a song without synthesizers or auto-tune in any kind of production sheen. One of the quirks of this song is that it makes it so engaging is that the pre-chorus, which is 9 bars instead of the usual 8, that extra bar was like holding your breath a little bit too long before the chorus hit, allegedly so. Scientists have studied this song to find out why it creates such an emotional reaction in listeners. A Wall Street Journal story revealed that musically it's very much about small unexpected changes in the melody. What they call ornamental notes appear all over the song, which create a kind of melancholy tension. Tear-jerkers often move from soft to loud and contain some dramatic shifts at key moments. In Someone Like You, this is when Adele's voice jumps an octave and becomes much louder in the chorus. Of course, none of this would help without heartfelt lyrics delivered with conviction. And she says the notes say about this, it's a song about getting over an ex, which is odd because we haven't had that, have we?
Yeah, but at least in this one, she's being positive because she's expressing gratitude for the love that they did share.
Yeah.
But what an odd way to end an album. How many albums can you think of that end on a record that has sold that many? You know, the album is top and tail by
bestsellers.
songs. It just doesn't happen normally. You sort of hit the first 6-7 tracks and it's done, and you get 3 or 4 lightweight tracks towards the end of the album just to fill up the second side of the vinyl.
Yeah, maybe.
But then if you marry it, because apparently this album is designed as, I'm heartbroken. Here's the phases of grief and anger, and this is her kind of resolving at the end of that journey, getting ready to move on.
Yes, so her ability to convey the meaning that the lyrics, regardless whether she has written them. Yes, absolutely. I mean, her ability as a singer and the quality of her voice is peerless, absolutely peerless.
Yeah.
So here we go. The last track, Someone Like You.
I heard that you settled down, that you found a girl and you're married now. I heard that your dreams came true. Guess she gave you things I didn't give to you. Oh, friend, why are you so shy? Ain't like you to hold back or hide from the light. I hate to turn up out of the blue uninvited, but I couldn't stay away. I couldn't fight it. I had hoped you'd see my face and that you'd be reminded that for me it isn't over. Never mind, I'll find someone like you. I wish nothing but the best for you too. Don't forget me, I think I'll remember you say sometimes it lasts and loves, but sometimes it hurts instead. Sometimes it lasts and loves, but sometimes it hurts instead.
So there we are. Some great songs.
Yeah, without a doubt.
A great voice.
Yep.
Fantastic performance.
Authentic, it's a word I'd use. Yes.
This song won best pop solo performance in the 2012 Grammys. She sings with total conviction and really throws herself into it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so on that point, Mary, you're absolutely right. She sings a lot of this song from the chest voice, and that's where a lot of the breath control comes from. She very rarely drops to a head voice unless she belts, which is interesting.
Yeah, and but a great album.
Wasn't for me, but like I say, I am kind of an odd.
No, well, not at all. I think that the downside for this, for me, is that it doesn't have much change of pace in it. You know, so all of the songs are about the same thing, really. And yes, it as you said, you know, it transitions her journey through the breakup. That's true. I think that it's a very exclusive narrative, that it's all about her. So it's not about her and what she's seeing or doing. It's about her and what she's feeling. So it's a very personal story that she's telling. And I would have liked to have seen a couple more upbeat numbers. You know, something which had a faster pace and was less R&B ballady and more kind of toe tapper and dancer kind of song. A good album, it sold well. Not a great album for me, although I did quite enjoy it, in fairness.
as I said at the start, I didn't particularly. I started the week off fine, full of optimism, full of hope. I wanted to like it, and maybe that was the wrong thing to do as well. But just to pick up on your point about the pace. Joni Mitchell drops out albums that are full of not similar sounding songs, but albums that don't peak and fall with intensity and tempo and that sort of stuff. And those albums stand on their own.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there we have it. 21 by Adele. I'll point out the fact this was your choice, so you got no one to blame but yourself.
No, I blame myself.
So next time, hopefully, you'll bring something that you truly love to the show. So next week it's Alice in Chains, Dirt, with a new presenter, Mark Deeks. So that will be an entertaining hour. So until then, thank you all very much. Thank you so much, Ieuan. As always, brilliantly entertaining. And hopefully see you all again next week.
Have a great weekend, Joe.